The vanished civilization of the Indus Valley. Beneath the dusty plains of Pakistan and northwestern India lie the silent ruins of one of the world's first great civilizations, a culture that thrived nearly 5,000 years ago and then, inexplicably, disappeared. The Indus Valley Civilization, also called the Harappan Civilization, was vast, sophisticated, and strikingly modern in its design. Its cities, such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, had grid-like streets, advanced sewage systems, multi-story homes, standardized weights, and even what appear to be early forms of public baths. By all appearances, this civilization was one of progress, balance, and resilience. Yet, by around 1900 BCE, it had largely collapsed, its cities abandoned, its people scattered, and its once vibrant culture fading into obscurity. Why did it vanish? And what secrets are still locked within the bricks and artifacts that remain? To wander among the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro today is to feel the pulse of a mystery that refuses to die. The streets are too well planned, too carefully engineered to suggest chaos. The baths hint at ritual and community life, while the lack of ostentatious palaces or temples suggest a society without absolute monarchs or towering priest-kings. There is balance here, order, perhaps even equality. Yet, despite these achievements, the civilization's script remains undeciphered. Thousands of small seals have been found etched with strange symbols, humans, animals, abstract markings, and cryptic designs. Archaeologists believe they represent a language, yet no one can read it. Without bilingual texts like the Rosetta Stone, the Harappan language remains locked away, whispering to us in silence, refusing to yield its meaning. What was written on those seals? Were they contracts, prayers, stories, warnings? The answer could illuminate the true heart of this civilization, but the silence of those symbols keeps their world shrouded. The mystery deepens when we consider the end. Around 1900 BCE, signs of decline appear across Harappan cities. Wells dried, streets fell into disrepair, and once thriving trade routes faltered. Skeletal remains suggest malnutrition, disease, or perhaps even violence. Some historians point to shifting monsoons. Evidence suggests the climate may have changed, with floods alternating with droughts that destroyed harvests and strained urban life. Others suspect earthquakes, for the region lies along active tectonic zones. But there are darker whispers too. Did invaders sweep through, leaving ruin behind? Ancient texts from India speak of Aryan tribes migrating into the subcontinent. Did they destroy the Harappan people or simply inherit their abandoned lands? Yet archaeological evidence for large-scale invasion is thin, leaving us with only speculation.
Still, there are fragments of eerie hints that challenge easy explanations. At Mohenjo-Daro, several skeletons were found sprawled in the streets as if death came suddenly and without warning. Radiation levels at these sites were once rumored to be unusually high, fueling wild theories about ancient nuclear blasts or lost technologies. Most scholars dismiss such claims, but the persistence of the idea only adds to the aura of mystery surrounding the ruins. Was the end natural, a slow decay brought by the environment, or something sudden, violent, and catastrophic? The Indus script tantalizes us with possible answers. If only we could decipher it, we might know whether the Harappans were aware of their decline, whether they prayed to their gods for salvation, or whether they recorded prophecies of doom. Some symbols seem to reoccur in specific patterns, suggesting religious or political meaning, while others appear on trade seals that may have passed through distant lands, reaching Mesopotamia or beyond. Imagine the possibilities. Hidden in those tiny marks could be the names of forgotten rulers, records of wars or treaties, even poems or myths lost to the ages. Yet every attempt to unlock the code has ended in failure. The script may represent not just one language but several, or perhaps it is not a language at all, but a symbolic system whose meaning cannot be understood outside its cultural context. Like a locked door without a key, it taunts us from the distant past. The mystery also lies in the people themselves. Unlike Egypt, Mesopotamia, or China, where kings and dynasties dominate history, the Harappans left no grand tombs, no royal statues, no monumental inscriptions declaring the power of their rulers. Who led them? Was their society egalitarian, ruled by councils or elders rather than kings? Or did their leaders hide their power in more subtle ways, without leaving monuments to their egos? The absence of temples suggests religion may have been woven into everyday life rather than centered around massive cult structures. Small figurines hint at fertility worship, while recurring animal motifs suggest sacred symbols, perhaps linked to the later Hindu pantheon. Could the Harappans be the spiritual ancestors of modern South Asia religions, their beliefs echoing down through millennia in ways we do not yet recognize? Even more mysterious is how a civilization so advanced in urban planning left behind no clear evidence of military power. Where are the weapons, the fortresses, the records of battles? Could it be that the Indus Valley people managed to sustain a largely peaceful society for centuries, trading with neighbors rather than conquering them? If so, theirs would be a rare example in human history, an urban civilization built not on war, but on balance and cooperation. And if such a society existed, what lessons might it hold for us today? Or does the lack of evidence merely mean we have not yet uncovered their darker side, the hidden remnants of conflict buried deeper than we have dug?
The unanswered questions swirl endlessly. Were the Harappans the same people who later composed the Rig Veda, one of the world's oldest sacred texts, or were they swept away by newcomers who absorbed and reshaped their legacy? Did their culture vanish entirely, or does it live on in subtle ways, in the languages, traditions, and beliefs of millions who walk the land today without knowing their ancestors once ruled it? And why, after so much effort by scholars, has their script resisted us? Is it possible that it will never be deciphered, that some mysteries are meant to remain locked forever? Standing among the sun-baked bricks of Mohenjo-Daro, one cannot help but feel the weight of time pressing down. The silence is almost palpable, as though the ruins are watching, waiting. Perhaps they know their secret is safe, hidden until humanity is ready to understand. Perhaps the lost voices of the Indus Valley still echo beneath the earth, waiting for the day when someone listens closely enough to hear them. Until then, we are left with fragments, broken seals, crumbling walls, nameless skeletons. Enough to hint at greatness, enough to spark wonder, but not enough to explain. The mystery of the Indus Valley is not simply about a vanished civilization. It is about the limits of our knowledge, the fragility of memory, and the silence of time. It reminds us that even the greatest human achievements can be swallowed whole by history, leaving behind only whispers. And it leaves us with a haunting question. If such a vast, sophisticated civilization could vanish almost without trace, what might one day remain of ours? The Pyramids of Giza, monuments of impossible precision. Rising from the golden sands of Egypt, shimmering beneath the relentless desert sun, the Pyramids of Giza have stood for more than 4,500 years. They are at once familiar and unknowable. Instantly recognizable symbols of ancient power, yet still shrouded in questions that refuse to be silenced. How were these colossal monuments built with such precision, at a time when humanity supposedly had only copper tools, ropes, and bare hands? Why were they aligned so perfectly with the stars, the compass points, and even the dimensions of the earth itself? What purpose did they truly serve? Mere tombs for pharaohs, or something deeper, something we have yet to comprehend? The Great Pyramid, built for Pharaoh Khufu, towers to a height of 481 feet in its original form. It was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. Yet what baffles engineers and historians alike is not simply its size, but its perfection. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost a perfect square, its sides aligned within a fraction of a degree to true north.
The difference in length between its longest and shortest sides is less than 2 inches, a feat of accuracy that modern builders would struggle to replicate without laser levels and GPS technology. Each massive limestone block, some weighing more than 70 tons, was cut, transported, and placed with such precision that even today, a razor blade cannot easily slip between them. How was such a thing achieved in an age without cranes, trucks, or advanced machinery? Mainstream Egyptologists suggest armies of workers, tens of thousands of laborers hauled the stones on sledges, lubricating the sand with water to reduce friction. They built ramps of mud brick and limestone chippings, dragging the blocks slowly upward as the pyramid rose. Perhaps this is true. Perhaps human determination, discipline, and clever engineering overcame all obstacles. Yet as one stands before the colossal bulk of the pyramid, it is hard not to feel that this explanation falls short. The sheer logistics of cutting, moving, and placing more than 2 million blocks within a span of about 20 years seems almost beyond imagination. To build at such a scale with such perfection suggests either a mastery of techniques lost to us or something else entirely. And then there is the alignment with the stars. The pyramids of Giza are not scattered randomly, but arranged in a formation that mirrors Orion's belt, the trio of stars in the constellation Orion. The ancient Egyptians associated Orion with Osiris, god of the afterlife, while the nearby Milky Way mirrored their sacred Nile. Was this an accident of design, or was it intentional? A cosmic blueprint laid in stone, a bridge between heaven and earth. The shafts inside the Great Pyramid point not only to the stars, but also to key constellations that had deep religious significance. Did the pyramid serve as a celestial instrument, marking the passage of souls into eternity, or was it a kind of star map etched permanently onto the desert floor? The mystery deepens when one considers the mathematical relationships encoded within the Great Pyramid's dimensions. The ratio of its perimeter to its height is almost exactly equal to 2 pi, linking the structure to the geometry of the circle. Its proportions also appear to encode the golden ratio, a mathematical constant that recurs throughout nature, art, and architecture. How did the ancient Egyptians know such things? Were these coincidences, products of practical design that happened to match mathematical constants, or deliberate choices, proof of advanced knowledge far beyond what their era should have possessed?
Some researchers argue that the pyramids may have served purposes other than burial. After all, not a single body has been conclusively found inside the Great Pyramid. Was it truly a tomb, or was it something else? An observatory, a power plant, a monument to knowledge? Fringe theories suggest that the Great Pyramid's internal chambers and passageways form a kind of machine, designed to channel Earth's natural energies, vibrations, or even sound frequencies. The shape of the pyramid itself is thought to concentrate energy fields, leading some to speculate about its use as a spiritual amplifier or technological device. While mainstream archaeologists scoff at such ideas, the lack of definitive answers leaves room for speculation. Another layer of mystery lies in the methods of construction. If ramps were used, where are the remains of these colossal structures? No evidence of the massive ramps, large enough to stretch for miles and carry stones weighing dozens of tons, has ever been conclusively found. Some suggest the ramps were dismantled, their material recycled into nearby structures, but others are not convinced. Could the Egyptians have used water channels, counterweights, or even sound-based technologies we no longer understand? Ancient legends speak of priests who used chants and instruments to move great stones as if they were weightless. Myth or memory of a forgotten science? And yet, the pyramids are not unique. Across the world, from Mesopotamia to Central America, pyramid-like structures appear, rising from the earth like echoes of a shared memory. How did cultures separated by oceans and centuries arrive at such similar designs? Was it simply a practical solution, a stable shape for building high? Or does it suggest some deeper connection, some exchange of knowledge across the ancient world that history has failed to record? Could it be that humanity once possessed a shared body of wisdom, scattered after cataclysms and forgotten until only fragments remained? Inside the Great Pyramid, the mystery intensifies. Narrow shafts lead from the so-called King's Chamber toward the stars, too small for human passage, but precise in their direction. The sarcophagus within the chamber is too large to have been brought inside through the narrow corridors. It must have been placed there during construction. But the sarcophagus is empty, its lid missing. No inscriptions decorate the walls, unlike the tombs of later pharaohs, which are covered in hieroglyphs. Why would the Egyptians build their greatest monument and leave it silent, undecorated, devoid of the sacred texts meant to guide a soul through the afterlife? Unless, of course, it was not a tomb at all. The acoustics of the chambers add another layer of strangeness. Sounds resonate within the stone walls, producing vibrations that feel almost alive. Some experiments suggest the pyramid amplifies certain frequencies, creating effects that may have been intentional. Did the Egyptians understand the science of resonance, of sound as energy? Was the pyramid built not only of stone, but of vibration, a harmonization of earth and cosmos? And what of the hidden voids? In recent years, advanced scanning technology has revealed large, unexplored cavities inside the Great Pyramid, spaces that have never been entered in recorded history. What lies within them? Are they structural, or do they conceal chambers still untouched, secrets waiting in silence for the right moment to be discovered? Could they hold artifacts, texts, or knowledge that would reshape everything we know about the ancient world? The pyramids of Giza stand as more than monuments to kings. They are puzzles in stone, challenges to our understanding of history, whispers from a time when human ambition and mystery were bound together. Each block is a question, each angle a riddle. Were they the work of human genius alone, or do they hint at something greater, lost technologies, forgotten sciences, or even guidance from beyond our world? When you stand at the base of the Great Pyramid, gazing upward as its immense sides soar into the sky, the air seems to vibrate with questions. The desert wind carries whispers of workers who toiled, priests who prayed, and rulers who dreamed of eternity. Yet the silence of the stones is unbroken. They do not answer, they do not explain, they endure. The pyramids remind us of the limits of our knowledge and the arrogance of assuming the past is fully understood. They are guardians of secrets, perhaps never meant to be revealed. Monuments not just of stone, but of mystery. And as the sun sets behind them, painting the desert in blood-red light, one cannot help but wonder, are the pyramids what they appear to be? Or are they messages, coded in geometry, aligned with the heavens, left behind for us to decipher when we are ready? Until the day their secrets are truly unlocked, they remain eternal enigmas, the greatest riddle ever carved in stone. Stonehenge, the silent circle of giants. On the wind-swept Salisbury Plain of southern England, a ring of colossal stones rises against the horizon, stark and solitary. Stonehenge, an arrangement of massive sarzens and bluestones set in concentric circles, has stood for more than 4,000 years, enduring storms, wars, and centuries of speculation. Tourists flock to marvel at it, scholars argue endlessly about it, and still the Great Circle refuses to reveal its true purpose. Why was Stonehenge built? Who erected it? And how, with the primitive tools of the Neolithic age, did they transport stones weighing up to 25 tons across miles of rugged land? At first glance, Stonehenge appears deceptively simple. An incomplete circle of megaliths, many toppled, some weathered into broken shapes. Yet closer study reveals astonishing sophistication. The sarsen stones, some standing 30 feet tall, are carefully shaped and joined with mortise and tenon joints, the same carpentry techniques used in fine woodwork. The smaller bluestones, weighing 2 to 4 tons each, were hauled from quarries in Wales, nearly 150 miles away. To this day, no one agrees on how they were transported. Did the builders drag them on sledges across land, float them along rivers, or roll them on logs? Recent discoveries suggest they may have been dragged all the way from the Preseli Hills, an undertaking of unimaginable labor for a prehistoric society. Why go to such effort when local stones were available nearby? The very alignment of the stones hints at purpose. On the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, casting its first rays into the heart of the monument. On the winter solstice, the sun sets in near-perfect alignment with the central axis. Clearly, Stonehenge was not placed randomly. It was a vast solar calendar, a cosmic observatory that marked the rhythm of the heavens. But was it merely an astronomical tool, or was the tracking of celestial events tied to deeper rituals, fertility, harvest, life, and death? For centuries, theories about Stonehenge have multiplied like shadows. Some believe it was a temple to the sun or moon, where ancient priests conducted sacred rites. Others think it was a burial ground, a necropolis, where the dead were honored beneath the eternal gaze of the stars. Archaeological evidence supports the latter. Hundreds of cremated remains have been discovered, suggesting that the monument served as a place of death and remembrance. But the bones date across centuries, long after the first stones were set, hinting that Stonehenge's role evolved over time. And then there are the more esoteric theories. Was Stonehenge a place of healing? Some researchers argue that the blue stones brought from the Preseli Hills were believed to hold magical or medicinal properties. Ancient people may have traveled vast distances to be cured, gathering around the circle as if it were a prehistoric hospital. Others imagine it as a site of pilgrimage where entire communities came together to mark cosmic events and bind their tribes through ritual.
Yet Stonehenge is not alone. Across Britain and Northern Europe, stone circles and megalithic monuments rise from the earth, silent sentinels of a lost tradition. From Avery, a vast circle even larger than Stonehenge, to the Callanish stones in Scotland, these structures suggest a shared language of stone, a culture of builders who moved in harmony with the stars. Were they connected? Did they share a unified system of belief stretching across lands and centuries? Or were these monuments independent echoes of a universal human impulse to align earth with sky? The mystery deepens when we consider the precision of Stonehenge's construction. Some stones are aligned with lunar cycles as well as solar ones, marking not just annual solstices, but the complex 18.6-year cycle of the moon. How did Neolithic people, without written language or advanced instruments, calculate such cosmic patterns? Did they rely on centuries of careful observation, passing knowledge orally across generations? Or did they inherit wisdom from an even older, forgotten culture, perhaps one erased by time and cataclysm? And then there are the myths. Medieval chroniclers claimed that Stonehenge was built by Merlin the Wizard, who transported the stones from Ireland by magic. Folklore speaks of giants who placed the stones in their circle, their strength beyond human limits. Could these myths preserve distorted memories of real events? Memories of a people so awed by the builder's achievement that they could only explain it as sorcery? Or do they hint at something stranger still, knowledge or power that we cannot comprehend? In recent decades, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of wooden posts and surrounding structures, suggesting that Stonehenge was part of a much larger ceremonial landscape. Darrington Walls, a massive earthwork nearby, appears to have been a settlement where thousands gathered for feasts and rituals. Processional avenues link these sites, as if guiding participants on symbolic journeys between life and death, wood and stone, the temporal and the eternal. Stonehenge may have been the center of a vast ritual complex, its stones marking the climax of a sacred path. Yet, despite all these discoveries, the ultimate why remains elusive. Why build such a monument at all? Why labor for generations, shaping and moving stones of unimaginable weight to align them with the heavens? Was it fear of the unknown, an attempt to impose order on the cosmos? Was it devotion to gods long forgotten, deities whose names have vanished into the silence of prehistory? Or was it something more?
an attempt to create a bridge between worlds, a place where earth and sky, living and dead, human and divine, could meet. Some suggest that Stonehenge may have encoded more than just astronomical cycles. Its geometry hints at advanced knowledge of mathematics, its proportions tied to sacred ratios and cosmic patterns. Was this coincidence or evidence of a prehistoric science that we have underestimated? The idea unsettles us, for it suggests that people we call primitive may have held insights into the universe we still struggle to grasp. And then, of course, there are the wilder theories. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts argue that Stonehenge was a landing site for extraterrestrials, a beacon or marker visible from the skies. Others believe it was a kind of machine, perhaps even a generator of energy, drawing power from the Earth itself. Such ideas are dismissed by mainstream scholars, yet their persistence reveals something important. Stonehenge resists explanation so strongly that even the most outlandish ideas seem tempting in the face of its silence. Standing within the circle today, the stones dwarf you. Their surfaces are scarred with time, their edges softened by centuries of wind and rain, but their presence is overwhelming. They radiate something, power, mystery, or perhaps simply the weight of human will. When the solstice sun rises and the crowds gather to watch the light pierce the ancient axis, there is a moment when time collapses. For just an instant, you feel connected to those who stood here thousands of years ago, eyes raised to the same horizon, hearts filled with awe and questions that still linger. Stonehenge is a reminder that history is not a straight line, but a tapestry woven with threads we can no longer see. Its stones speak not only of human ingenuity, but of human longing for connection, for meaning, for eternity. We do not know why it was built or what its builders truly believed. We may never know. But perhaps that is the point. Perhaps Stonehenge is not meant to be solved, but to be felt, to awaken in us the same wonder it stirred in those who first raised its giants against the sky. Until the day its secret is revealed, if that day ever comes, Stonehenge will remain what it has always been, a riddle carved in stone, a silent circle of giants, whispering across the ages to anyone willing to listen. The lost city of Atlantis, a civilization that vanished beneath the waves. Few names conjure visions of mystery and wonder quite like Atlantis. For millennia, the tale of a mighty city, or perhaps an entire continent, swallowed by the sea has haunted human imagination. Was it a parable crafted by philosophers, or a memory of a real civilization destroyed in cataclysm? If Atlantis existed, where was it and why did it vanish? The first mention of Atlantis comes from Plato, the Greek philosopher, who around 360 BCE described it in two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. According to him, Atlantis was a powerful island nation beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, rich in resources and ruled by a proud and mighty people. Its cities were wondrous, built in concentric circles of land and water, glittering with temples and palaces. Its fleets commanded the seas, its armies challenged nations, and its wealth was unmatched. Yet with its prosperity came arrogance. The Atlanteans, Plato wrote, grew greedy and corrupt until the gods struck them down. In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis sank beneath the waves, leaving nothing but legend. For some, Plato's account is simply allegory, a moral tale about hubris and divine punishment. But for others, the story resonates too strongly, its details too vivid to dismiss as pure invention. Was Plato drawing from older traditions, ancient memories passed down through Egyptian priests who spoke of a great civilization destroyed long before Greece rose? Or did he record whispers of a disaster so ancient that its memory became myth? If Atlantis was real, where was it? Here lies the enduring mystery. Scholars, adventurers, and dreamers have scoured the globe, proposing locations as varied as Santorini, Crete, the Azores, the Caribbean, South America, even Antarctica. Each theory carries fragments of possibility. The island of Santorini, Thera, in the Aegean Sea, is one of the strongest candidates. Around 1600 BCE, it was the site of one of history's most powerful volcanic eruptions, which obliterated much of the island and devastated the nearby Minoan civilization. The disaster created tsunamis, ash clouds, and widespread destruction. Could this be the real Atlantis, a flourishing maritime society destroyed in a single night by natural forces? The ruins of Akrotiri, buried beneath volcanic ash, resemble Plato's descriptions of advanced urban planning. Yet Santorini lies within the Mediterranean, not beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and the timeline doesn't perfectly align with Plato's account. Others point to Crete, the heart of the Minoan civilization, a culture famed for its palaces, artistry, and seafaring power. Around 1450 BCE, the Minoans declined rapidly, possibly linked to the eruption of Santorini and subsequent upheaval. Could Atlantis have been Crete, remembered centuries later as a lost empire beneath the waves? Farther afield, some propose the Azores, volcanic islands in the mid-Atlantic. They lie roughly where Plato described Atlantis, and their geography suggests remnants of once larger landmasses. Others see Atlantis in the Caribbean, linking it to the Maya or the fabled Bimini Road near the Bahamas, a submerged stone formation that some claim is a man-made harbor or road, though mainstream scientists argue it is natural. Even Antarctica has been drawn into the theory. The idea that a great civilization once thrived there before shifting ice buried it under miles of frozen wasteland fuels speculation of pole shifts and lost knowledge. Though widely dismissed, the image of Atlantis beneath the ice continues to inspire seekers. The fascination with Atlantis is not only about geography, but about possibility. The story suggests that humanity's timeline may be deeper, more complex, and more advanced than we imagine. Could it be that civilizations of great sophistication rose and fell long before recorded history? If so, Atlantis is not just a place, it is a symbol of lost chapters in our story, reminders that history may not be as linear as we think. Legends across cultures echo similar tales. In flood myths from Mesopotamia, India, the Americas, and beyond, we find stories of great cities destroyed by water, of civilizations wiped away overnight. Could Atlantis be one version of a universal memory, a real catastrophe, preserved in different forms across the world? Was there once a time when seas rose, land sank, and human societies were forced to begin again from the ruins? The enduring enigma also lies in why Atlantis vanished. If real, was it destroyed by volcanic eruption, earthquake, tsunami, or by its own hubris, as Plato claimed? Perhaps its destruction was sudden, its people fleeing, their knowledge scattered among survivors who seeded later civilizations. Some suggest the Egyptians, Mayans, and Mesopotamians inherited fragments of Atlantean wisdom, astronomy, mathematics, architecture, explaining sudden leaps in cultural development. But if such a transfer occurred, the proof remains elusive, hidden in myths and ruins. More tantalizing are the claims of artifacts or evidence hidden beneath the seas. Sonar scans of the ocean floor occasionally reveal shapes resembling structures, sparking rumors of submerged cities. Off the coast of India, near Dwarka, ruins lie beneath the water, older than many known civilizations. Off Cuba's coast, deep-sea surveys reportedly detected vast stone formations resembling streets and buildings. Each discovery raises hope of Atlantis, yet none has provided conclusive proof. The ocean guards its secrets well. Why does Atlantis grip us so fiercely? Perhaps because it embodies both warning and hope. It is the story of greatness undone by arrogance, a reminder that no empire is eternal. But it also whispers of a golden age, a time when humans may have achieved wonders long before we believed possible. If Atlantis existed, then our past is far stranger and richer than we have dared imagine. Standing at the edge of the Atlantic, watching waves crash endlessly against the shore, one can almost hear the echo of something vast beneath the depths. Was Atlantis a city of shining marble, temples, and canals, now lying silent under leagues of salt water? Or is it forever a metaphor, a story told to remind us of the fragility of human pride? The truth may remain hidden, but the mystery endures. Whether Atlantis was real or imagined, it has shaped our dreams for over 2 millennia. Explorers still search, divers still dive, writers still imagine. For in the idea of Atlantis lies a question that haunts us. What if history as we know it is only the surface of something far deeper, waiting beneath the waves? And so Atlantis remains what it has always been, a city of silence, perhaps real, perhaps myth, but always beckoning. A riddle of the deep, a promise of secrets lost, and a reminder that the past may yet surprise us.
The Voynich Manuscript, the book no one can read. Locked within the Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library lies an enigma that has defied the brightest cryptographers, linguists, and historians for over a century, the Voynich Manuscript. To gaze upon its pages is to step into another world, a dreamscape painted in vivid inks and written in an alphabet that exists nowhere else on Earth. It is a book of secrets, a codex that whispers but never explains, inviting us closer even as it pushes understanding further away. The manuscript surfaced in 1912 when a Polish antiquarian, Wilfrid Voynich, acquired it from an Italian Jesuit college. Bound in calfskin, its 240 surviving pages are filled with strange illustrations, alien plants, naked women bathing in pools connected by pipes, astronomical charts, zodiac wheels, and endless paragraphs of flowing script that no one has ever translated. The writing resembles a language, letters grouped into words, words arranged into sentences. Yet it matches no known tongue. No dictionary, no Rosetta Stone, no parallel text exists to unlock it. At first glance, the Voynich manuscript feels like nonsense. Surely, one thinks, this must be a hoax. But analysis shows otherwise. Linguistic patterns within the text suggest it is not random. Certain characters recur with regularity, words follow rules of structure, and statistical analysis reveals patterns closer to natural language than gibberish. Someone created this text with purpose. But why? And what does it say? The mystery deepens with the illustrations. The plants depicted do not match any known species, though some resemble distorted versions of real herbs. Are they imaginary or forgotten varieties that once grew but are now extinct? The astronomical diagrams show stars, suns, and moons, yet arranged in patterns unlike any familiar constellations. Naked women stand in tubs linked by intricate piping as though part of some alchemical process or medical treatment. Is this a book of medicine, a manual of magic, a map of the stars, or all three? Attempts to decode the manuscript span centuries. During World War II, the world's best codebreakers, men who cracked Nazi ciphers, tried and failed. Cryptographers from the NSA examined it, only to admit defeat. Linguists have proposed theories ranging from an unknown European dialect to an invented artificial language, even to glossolalia, the writing of someone in trance, channeling words from beyond reason. Each theory explains part of the puzzle, but never the whole.
Carbon dating places the vellum around the early 1400s, in the European Middle Ages. The ink matches the period as well, proving it is no modern forgery. Yet its origins remain uncertain. Some believe it came from northern Italy, others from Central Europe. Some claim its script is a cipher masking a known language, Latin perhaps, or an early form of Romance speech. But after countless attempts, no one has found the key. Wild theories flourish in the absence of certainty. Was the Voynich manuscript the work of an eccentric alchemist, encoding secret recipes for elixirs of immortality? Was it a book of women's medicine, explaining fertility and childbirth in symbolic form? Or was it meant as a hoax even then, designed to impress a wealthy patron with its air of mystery? Sold for gold, though it contained only beautiful nonsense? More outlandish ideas push into the extraordinary. Some suggest it is a relic of a lost civilization, its language and plants remnants of knowledge erased from history. Others whisper it may not be of Earth at all, a record of another world, another people, captured in ink. The plants, strange and unearthly, could be real somewhere else. The naked women might be symbols of alien biology. The diagrams might chart not our stars, but theirs. And yet, despite the lure of the fantastic, the Voynich manuscript resists both hoax and fantasy. Too much effort, too much consistency exists within its pages for it to be mere fraud. Its words follow rules. Its images seem deliberate. It is as though its creator knew exactly what they were doing, even if we do not. The book's history adds another layer of intrigue. After Voynich's discovery, researchers traced its earlier owners. A letter found with it, dated 1666, describes the manuscript being sent to Emperor Rudolph II of the Holy Roman Empire, who was fascinated by alchemy and the occult. Rudolph reportedly paid a small fortune for it, believing it was the work of the English scholar Roger Bacon. From there, the book passed through scholars, alchemists, and collectors, each puzzled, each failing to understand. Its journey is itself a shadowed trail, marked by obsession and mystery. Modern technology has not pierced its veil. Computer algorithms analyze its structure, suggesting that it could represent an actual language. But which one? Some believe it may be a cipher based on Hebrew or Arabic, others that it represents a language isolate long since vanished. Some claim artificial intelligence has detected faint traces of meaning, identifying words for plants or stars. But these hints remain disputed, fragile as whispers in the dark.
The Voynich manuscript's allure lies in its silence. In a world where so much is explained, here is a book that refuses to yield. Each page taunts us with meaning just out of reach. Each strange flower and flowing script a reminder that knowledge can still escape us. It is a mirror of human curiosity. The more we study, the deeper the mystery grows. And yet, perhaps the greatest mystery is why we are so desperate to understand it. If the manuscript is merely a hoax, then it has succeeded beyond its creator's wildest dreams. If it is genuine, it may contain secrets of medicine, astronomy, or spirituality long forgotten. Or perhaps it contains nothing at all, only the play of symbols meant for purposes we cannot imagine, art, ritual, or madness. To turn its pages, whether in person or through high-resolution scans, is to enter a labyrinth. The script dances across the parchment in elegant loops, tantalizing and mocking. The plants twist and curl like fragments of memory from a dream you almost remember but can never quite grasp. The women smile faintly as they wade in their strange pools, as if amused by your confusion. And the stars wheel across pages that seem to chart not heaven as we know it, but some other unreachable sky. The Voynich manuscript stands as a reminder that some mysteries endure, that not all human effort can force the universe to reveal its secrets. It is a book that resists us, that holds its silence like a shield. Perhaps one day a key will be found, a forgotten code book, a breakthrough in linguistics, or a flash of insight that unlocks its meaning. Or perhaps it will remain forever a riddle, laughing at our need to explain. For now, it lies in its glass case, patient and eternal. A book no one can read, a voice no one can hear. Its secret is its power, and its silence is its allure. Until it speaks, or until we learn how to listen, the Voynich manuscript remains one of history's greatest enigmas, a puzzle written not just in ink, but in mystery itself. The Disappearance of the Indus Valley Civilization, a Lost World in Silence. Long before the pyramids of Giza reached toward the sky, before the Parthenon gleamed white under the Aegean sun, there flourished along the banks of the Indus River one of humanity's greatest civilizations. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, spread across what is now Pakistan, northwest India, and parts of Afghanistan, a society vast and sophisticated, with sprawling cities, intricate drainage systems, standardized weights, and evidence of trade stretching as far as Mesopotamia. And yet, as suddenly as it rose, it vanished. Its people faded into history's shadows, leaving behind only fragments, bricks, seals, pottery, and the faint outlines of cities whose streets are now silent. The enigma of the Indus is not only that it disappeared, but that it disappeared without explanation. Unlike Egypt, which bequeathed to us its hieroglyphs and dynasties, or Mesopotamia, whose clay tablets echo with ancient voices, the Indus left no readable texts. Its script, carved into small steatite seals and etched on pottery, remains undeciphered. The Harappans never explained themselves. They left no epic, no royal chronicle, no lamentation of collapse. All we see is a civilization that thrived for centuries and then, somehow, ceased. At its height, from about 2600 to 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley civilization was a marvel of order. The cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were laid out in grid patterns, astonishingly modern in design. Their streets intersected at right angles, homes had bathrooms with drainage connected to covered sewers. Granaries held food for thousands. The standardization across settlements, bricks of the same size, weights calibrated to the same measures, suggests a level of central control or cultural cohesion unlike anything else of its time. And yet, beneath this order lies mystery. Who ruled these cities? No palaces, no temples, no clear monuments of kings or gods have been found. Unlike Egypt, there are no towering statues or carved reliefs depicting rulers. Some scholars argue that the Indus may have been unusually egalitarian, perhaps ruled by councils rather than kings, perhaps guided by merchants or priesthoods whose influence left no visible stamp. Others suggest that their rulers existed but chose not to immortalize themselves in stone. Whoever they were, their voices are gone, and the silence of their governance haunts us still. The collapse of the Indus around 1900 BCE remains one of the great unsolved riddles of history. What force could have undone a civilization so vast and stable? Archaeologists propose theories, each plausible, none conclusive.
One possibility is climate change. Geological studies suggest that the great rivers feeding the Indus Valley shifted course or dried. The Saraswati River, once mighty, seems to have withered away, leaving settlements stranded. Without water, agriculture faltered. Crops failed, granaries emptied, and cities dependent on their harvest declined. Some Harappans may have migrated eastward, blending with early Vedic cultures in India, their identity dissolving into new traditions. Another theory points to floods. The Indus River is unpredictable, capable of devastating inundations. Mohenjo-Daro shows evidence of repeated flooding, layers of silt covering its streets. Perhaps the river turned against its children, forcing abandonment as waters rose and receded in destructive cycles. Others suggest disease, an epidemic sweeping through crowded urban centers, cutting down populations too quickly for recovery. Without written records, the dead leave no testimony, but mass burials and signs of stress hint at a people struggling against invisible enemies. There is also the theory of invasion. Ancient texts from later Vedic traditions speak of Aryan migrations into the subcontinent. Some historians once imagined a violent overthrow, marauding warriors burning cities and scattering survivors. Yet archaeological evidence of warfare is scarce. Few weapons, few signs of battle scars on the ruins. If newcomers came, they may have merged gradually, not destroyed outright. The truth may be more complex, a convergence of disasters. Climate shifts may have weakened agriculture. Flooding may have displaced populations, disease may have thinned communities, and migrations may have reshaped cultural landscapes. A civilization as intricate as the Indus may have unraveled not from one great catastrophe, but from many small ones, each thread snapping until the fabric was no longer whole. And still, the greatest mystery remains the script. Hundreds of seals show short inscriptions, symbols carved with care, often beside animals or geometric motifs. The script is tantalizingly close to meaning, yet always beyond reach. Are these names of rulers, records of trade, prayers to gods?
Attempts to decipher them have produced countless theories: that it is an early Dravidian language, that it is related to Sumerian or Elamite, that it represents a Proto-Sanskrit tongue, or that it is not a language at all, but a series of religious or mnemonic symbols. No consensus exists. The seals remain mute, guardians of a lost tongue. The disappearance of the Indus raises unsettling questions. How can a civilization so advanced, so widespread, simply vanish without leaving a story behind? Did the Harappans know they were collapsing? Did they watch their rivers dry and their cities flood, whispering to one another of gods abandoning them? Did they carve their final words into seals we can no longer read, hoping that someone, someday, would hear? Archaeologists continue to dig. New sites reveal more of their daily lives: ornaments, toys, tools, the rhythm of their existence. Yet every artifact deepens the mystery, a reminder of how much we do not know. In a world where we map the stars and split the atom, here lies a civilization whose basic story, its rulers, its language, its end, remains a blank page. Perhaps the Harappans never truly disappeared. Some believe they live on in the traditions of South Asia, in rituals, in village layouts, in faint linguistic echoes and Dravidian tongues. Their blood may flow in millions today, unrecognized, unacknowledged, but present. If so, then the Indus did not vanish, it transformed, becoming invisible in plain sight. And yet, as one stands among the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, where streets stretch straight and silent under the sun, where bricks lie stacked by hands long turned to dust, the silence is overwhelming. No voices call, no footsteps echo. It feels as though the city is waiting, its mystery patient, knowing we will never truly understand. The Indus Valley civilization remains a riddle not just of history, but of destiny. It forces us to confront the fragility of human achievement, the way even the mightiest cities can fall into silence, leaving only fragments for the future to ponder. Its enigma is not only what happened, but why we still cannot explain it. Perhaps the Harappans wanted it so, to vanish into history's mist, leaving behind a whisper that taunts eternity. Until we read their script, until we hear their voices, the Indus Valley civilization will remain a civilization both present and absent, a world we can touch in stone but never grasp in meaning, a ghost of greatness lost in silence. The Curse of the Tomb of Tutankhamun, Death in the Valley of Kings. In 1922, the Valley of the Kings lay quiet under the Egyptian sun, its cliffs hiding secrets buried for millennia. Most tombs had already been plundered, their treasures carried off by thieves long before archaeologists ever arrived. Many believed the valley had yielded all it had to give, but British archaeologist Howard Carter refused to accept that the sands had surrendered their last secret. For years he searched, guided by little more than instinct and scraps of evidence. Then, in November of that year, his persistence was rewarded. Beneath rubble and dust, Carter uncovered the steps leading to a sealed doorway, still intact with the royal necropolis seals. Beyond lay the tomb of Tutankhamun, the boy king of Egypt who had ruled over 3,000 years earlier. The discovery was hailed as the greatest archaeological find in history. The tomb was astonishingly intact, packed with treasures beyond imagination, golden statues, elaborate jewelry, and the now famous death mask, gleaming in the torchlight like the face of a god. For the modern world, it was a window into a vanished empire, dazzling and intoxicating. But along with the wonder came whispers, darker than gold, older than kings, the murmur of a curse. The legend began almost immediately. On the day Carter first broke into the tomb, strange events unfolded. Carter's canary, a cheerful companion, was killed by a cobra, a snake sacred to the pharaohs, symbol of divine kingship. Locals whispered that the serpent was a sign, a warning from Tutankhamun himself. The tomb was sealed for eternity, and those who dared disturb it would pay the price. Then came the deaths. Lord Carnarvon, the wealthy patron who had funded Carter's excavations, was the first. Within months of the tomb's opening, he was bitten by a mosquito on his cheek. The wound grew infected, blood poisoning set in, and he died in agony. At the moment of his death, legend says, the lights in Cairo flickered and went out. Newspapers around the world seized on the story. The curse of the pharaoh, they declared, had claimed its first victim. More deaths followed, each feeding the legend. Carnarvon's half-brother died suddenly. A member of Carter's excavation team collapsed from a heart attack. An American financier connected to the expedition leapt to his death. A radiologist who x-rayed the mummy was struck down by a mysterious illness. Even Carter's secretary, Richard Bethel, was found dead in bed, and his father soon after took his own life. By the 1930s, more than a dozen deaths had been attributed to the curse, and the world was captivated. Was Tutankhamun's spirit exacting revenge for the desecration of his eternal rest?
The tomb itself seemed to encourage belief in the curse. An inscription, translated from the walls, was said to read, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." Though modern scholars dispute the accuracy of this translation, the phrase spread like wildfire. Fear mingled with fascination. Ancient Egypt, land of spells and gods, seemed to reach out across millennia to touch the living with dread. Yet, as with many mysteries, skepticism fights with belief. Scientists and historians argue that the deaths were coincidence, exaggerated by eager newspapers and fearful imaginations. Many of those who entered the tomb lived long lives, including Howard Carter himself, who survived another 16 years, dying peacefully at the age of 64. If a curse truly struck down all intruders, why did it spare the man who had opened the tomb and gazed directly upon Tutankhamun's face? Other explanations are more natural, though no less unsettling. Some scientists suggest that the tomb may have contained deadly fungi or bacteria sealed within for centuries, released when the air was disturbed. Inhaled by the explorers, these pathogens could have triggered infections and illnesses that seemed mysterious in the 1920s but are explainable today. Others propose toxic gases from decaying organic matter trapped in the tomb's stagnant air as silent killers. In this sense, the curse may have been not supernatural but biological, a hazard written into the tomb's very dust. Still, the myth endures, more powerful than rationality. For many, the curse speaks to something deeper, the sense that some things are not meant to be disturbed. The Egyptians themselves believed deeply in the sanctity of the tomb. To disturb a mummy was to disrupt its soul's journey in the afterlife. Priests placed spells, amulets, and protective charms around the dead to ward off intruders. The idea of a curse was not foreign to them. It was their insurance against thieves and violators. Perhaps, then, the modern curse is simply a continuation of this ancient warning, a story kept alive by coincidence, fear, and our own guilty awe at trespassing among the dead. But what of Tutankhamun himself, the boy at the center of it all? He ruled for only about 9 years, ascending the throne at the age of 9, dying at 19. His reign was short, overshadowed by the upheavals of his predecessors. Yet his death and burial have made him immortal. The golden mask that once covered his face is now one of the most recognizable artifacts in the world. Ironically, had his tomb been plundered like so many others, he might have been forgotten. Instead, his name is forever linked to mystery, both of his own life and the curse that followed his rediscovery.
And what of the truth? Did the curse exist, or did we create it, weaving fear into fact until legend became indistinguishable from reality? Perhaps both. For even if no supernatural hand struck down Lord Carnarvon and the others, the curse lives in our imagination. It reminds us of the weight of the past, the dangers of probing too deeply into what was meant to be eternal. Standing in the Valley of the Kings, the air dry and still, the cliffs towering like guardians, one feels the presence of that ancient fear. The tombs are silent, yet heavy with meaning. The dead may not rise, but their shadows linger. Tutankhamun's golden face, staring with calm eternity, seems to ask, was it worth it? To disturb his rest for the sake of knowledge, for treasure, for curiosity? And what price have we paid?
in fear, in fascination, in the enduring whisper of a curse. The curse of Tutankhamun remains one of history's most potent mysteries, not because it cannot be explained, but because it lives where explanation fails. It is the perfect storm of chance, belief, and the unknown. Whether you believe in it or not, the story itself holds power, as unshakable as the desert stone that guards Egypt's kings. For in the end, the curse may not lie in microbes or magic, but in our own hearts. The unshakable feeling that some doors should never be opened, some secrets should remain sealed, and that when we break them open anyway, we invite the shadows of the past to walk among us once more.
The lost city of Atlantis, echoes of a sunken world. Beneath the rolling waves of myth and history lies a city that may or may not have existed, a place of splendor described in whispers and fragments, Atlantis. For over 2 millennia, the story of this drowned world has captivated poets, philosophers, explorers, and dreamers. Was it real, a thriving civilization swallowed by the sea? Or was it a parable invented by Plato to teach lessons about hubris and decline? Atlantis rests in that strange space between truth and imagination, a place as elusive as the horizon. The tale begins with Plato, the philosopher of ancient Greece. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BCE, he described a mighty island empire that lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis, he said, was larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, a land rich in resources, ruled by powerful kings, its people noble and strong. But arrogance led them astray. They sought to conquer Athens, and for their pride, the gods punished them. In a single night of earthquakes and floods, Atlantis sank into the sea, disappearing forever. To Plato's audience, the story may have seemed allegorical, a moral warning about the dangers of hubris, the fragility of human greatness. Yet he told it with such detail, such insistence on its truth, that generations after him could not help but wonder, what if it was real? The search for Atlantis has led adventurers to every corner of the globe. Some place it in the Mediterranean, on the island of Santorini, where the volcanic eruption that destroyed the Minoan civilization may echo Plato's account of fire and flood. Others seek it in Spain, pointing to the marshy plains of Doñana, where satellite images reveal circular formations resembling Plato's description of concentric rings. Still others look to the Caribbean, to Cuba or the Bahamas, where underwater structures, stone blocks, and roads hint at forgotten builders. And some reach further, claiming Atlantis lies under the ice of Antarctica, a continent that may once have been warmer, home to civilizations now entombed beneath miles of frozen silence.
But perhaps the greatest mystery is not where Atlantis was, but what it was. Was it truly a single city or a memory of many? Some scholars argue that Plato combined stories of the Minoans, Egyptians, and other ancient cultures into one parable. The Minoans, with their palaces, trade networks, and sudden collapse after volcanic disaster, mirror Atlantis closely. Could Atlantis simply be a poetic memory of their fall? Yet the allure of Atlantis is more than archaeology. It is imagination itself. To believe in Atlantis is to believe that somewhere, long ago, humanity achieved greatness and lost it, leaving only whispers. It suggests that history is not a straight line from primitive to advanced, but a cycle of rise and fall, a forgotten brilliance buried beneath time. Theories abound. Some imagine Atlantis as a technologically advanced civilization, far beyond its age, with machines and knowledge we cannot yet comprehend. Others see it as a spiritual center, a cradle of wisdom from which secrets of the cosmos flowed. Theosists and mystics claim Atlanteans wielded psychic powers, crystals that could harness energy and knowledge of the stars far greater than ours. To skeptics, such stories are fantasy, yet they endure, because Atlantis embodies a longing we cannot quite extinguish, the dream of a lost golden age. Even science lends Atlantis its shadow.
Geology shows us how lands can vanish, volcanoes exploding, earthquakes tearing ground apart, tsunamis devouring coasts. Entire islands have sunk within human memory. Why not a greater one long ago? The Mediterranean and Atlantic are littered with ruins swallowed by the sea, like Pavlopetri in Greece or Herakleion off Egypt's coast. Each discovery reignites hope. If these cities could vanish, could Atlantis be real? And yet no conclusive evidence has surfaced. Atlantis remains unpenned, always just out of reach. Perhaps that is its power, to remain hidden. For if Atlantis were found, if ruins rose from the sea and its streets were mapped, its history written, would it still hold the same mystery? Or does it endure precisely because it is unsolved, a riddle that fuels our hunger for the unknown?
The myth of Atlantis also serves as a mirror. When we imagine it, we reveal what we fear and desire. In the Renaissance, Atlantis was painted as a utopia, wise and pure. In the Age of Empire, it became a tale of conquest and downfall. In the 20th century, it was imagined as a beacon of advanced science lost before its time. Each era reshapes Atlantis into what it most longs for, or fears. And so Atlantis lives on, not in stone, but in the human mind. It surfaces in novels, films, and dreams, its golden towers glittering just beyond the horizon. We dive for it, dig for it, scan the ocean floor for its bones. Each expedition ends in uncertainty, but the search never stops. For in Atlantis we see not just a lost city, but ourselves, our hope that we are not the first, our fear that we will not be the last. Perhaps one day sonar will find its streets, or divers will uncover inscriptions proving it real. Or perhaps it will remain forever elusive, a myth too powerful to be captured. Either way, Atlantis endures, shimmering in the twilight between history and legend. When the sea is calm and the horizon wide, one can almost imagine it, gleaming palaces, vast harbors, temples shining in the sun. Then, with a shudder of earth and a roar of waves, it is gone again, drowned beneath the deep. Atlantis is the city we cannot reach, the dream we cannot forget. Its greatest mystery is not that it may have vanished, but that it refuses to let us go.
The Nazca Lines, Messages Across the Desert. In the southern desert of Peru, stretching across an arid plateau between the Andes and the Pacific, lie lines that should not exist. They are vast geoglyphs, figures drawn into the earth by removing the dark surface stones to reveal the pale soil beneath. To walk among them, you would see only shallow trenches, no taller than your knee. But from above, they come alive. Spread across nearly 1,000 square kilometers are hundreds of shapes. Straight lines running for miles, spirals and trapezoids, and immense figures of animals and plants. Monkeys with curling tails, birds with outstretched wings, spiders, lizards, even humanoid forms staring skyward. They are the Nazca Lines, etched into the earth between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nazca culture, a people otherwise known for their pottery, textiles, and irrigation. Yet these lines are unlike anything else they created. No tools, no written records, no explanations have survived to tell us why they carved such enormous images into the desert. They remain among the most mysterious monuments on Earth, messages that may never be fully read. The scale of the Nazca Lines is staggering. Some figures stretch nearly 1,200 feet across, so vast they can only be truly seen from the air. Yet the Nazca people had no airplanes, no drones, no satellites. How then did they design with such precision? Did they use primitive balloons, as some have suggested, or perhaps observation towers on nearby hills? Or were they masters of geometry, laying out their designs with ropes, stakes, and measurements invisible to us? Whatever their method, it worked. The figures are astonishingly accurate, perfectly proportioned even at massive scale.
But the deeper question is not how they made them, but why. What purpose did these geoglyphs serve? The desert is inhospitable, a place of little rain and endless sun. The figures cannot be seen from the ground in their entirety. Why invest so much labor in drawings invisible to those who walked among them? One theory is that the lines were ritual pathways. Archaeologists note that many of the long straight lines connect to ceremonial sites, suggesting processions may have followed them, walking along sacred routes in devotion to gods. The animal figures may have represented totems or deities, calling on divine power for fertility, rain, or harvest. In this reading, the lines are not pictures, but prayers, gigantic offerings carved into the skin of the earth.
Others suggest they were linked to astronomy. Some lines appear to align with solstices, equinoxes, or star positions. Perhaps the Nazca carved the desert into a calendar, marking the passage of time, guiding planting and harvest. Yet studies remain inconclusive. Too many lines, too many possibilities. Not all alignments are precise. It may be coincidence as much as design. A darker theory sees the lines as markers of water. The Nazca lived in one of the driest regions on Earth, where survival depended on hidden aquifers and canals. Some believe the geoglyphs map underground water sources, the figures guiding communities to life hidden beneath the desert. If so, then the lines were practical as well as spiritual. Rituals to honor water drawn atop the very veins that sustain them. But the mystery does not end with archaeology. The sheer strangeness of the Nazca lines has inspired theories far beyond science. In the 1960s, authors like Eric von Daniken popularized the idea that they were messages to the gods or to visitors from the stars. The straight lines stretching for miles resemble runways. The figures, visible only from above, seem designed for eyes in the sky. Could the Nazca have created them to signal extraterrestrial beings or to honor gods who descended from the heavens? To believers, the Nazca Desert is not just a landscape, but a landing pad, its lines guiding otherworldly travelers across time. Skeptics scoff, pointing out the lack of evidence for alien contact. Yet the idea endures because the mystery is so great. Why else would a people without flight carve images only visible from above? Why else would they labor so greatly in a desert where survival itself was fragile? The unknown invites speculation, and the Nazca lines remain a canvas for imagination. Perhaps the greatest enigma is their endurance. For over 1,500 years, the lines have remained almost unchanged. The desert's climate, dry, windless, nearly rainless, has preserved them like a vast open-air museum. Each line is only a shallow trench, yet together they have resisted time better than stone monuments elsewhere. It is as though the desert itself guards their secret, holding it until we are ready, or perhaps until we never are. To stand upon the Nazca Plain is to feel small, unable to see the full picture. But from the air, when the monkey curls its tail, when the hummingbird spreads its wings, when the straight lines converge toward horizons, the scale is overwhelming. It feels as though the earth itself has become a manuscript, written in a language of dust and silence. A message too large for eyes to grasp, too ancient for minds to translate. And maybe that is the point. Perhaps the Nazca did not intend for the figures to be seen by human eyes at all. Perhaps they were drawn for the gods, for spirits soaring above, for beings who could look down upon the desert and read the message written there. Perhaps the Nazca were not speaking to each other, but to the sky. The Nazca lines remain one of history's most haunting puzzles, a reminder that not all human creation is meant for understanding. They stand as silent prayers across the centuries, calling to gods, stars, or mysteries unknown. Each line, each spiral, each animal etched into the earth says the same thing. We were here. We reached beyond ourselves. We left a mark that would last forever. But what the mark means, that is the secret that refuses to be told. The dancing plague of 1518, when the world went mad. In the summer of 1518, the streets of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, became the stage for one of the strangest and most unsettling events in recorded history. It began with a single woman known to history as Frau Trophia. She stepped into the street and began to dance. There was no music, no festival, no joy. Her movements were compulsive, jerky, unrelenting. She danced for hours until her feet bled, until exhaustion overtook her. But she did not stop. Within days, others joined. Dozens of townspeople began to move in the same wild frenzy, their bodies seemingly possessed. They spun, lurched, and twirled without rest. They collapsed from fatigue, only to rise again and continue. By the end of the month, nearly 400 people were caught in the grip of this strange epidemic. Some danced to their deaths, succumbing to strokes, heart failure, or sheer exhaustion. The city was consumed by a plague not of pestilence, but of rhythm, a curse of endless movement. No one knew what to do. Physicians were summoned, but their understanding was limited by the superstitions of the age. They ruled out supernatural causes like possession or witchcraft, instead diagnosing an overheating of the blood. Their remedy? More dancing. The city erected a stage and hired musicians to play, believing the afflicted would dance themselves out of the madness. But the music only fed the frenzy, and the number of dancers grew. The streets of Strasbourg became a grotesque carnival of exhaustion as men, women, and even children collapsed in twitching heaps, their bodies betraying them. The question remains, what caused the dancing plague of 1518? 5 centuries later, no definitive answer exists. One theory points to ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that grows on damp rye, producing alkaloids similar to LSD. Consumed in bread, it can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and mania. Perhaps, historians argue, the people of Strasbourg ingested contaminated grain, leading to mass hysteria. Yet, ergot poisoning usually leads to gangrene and death, not coordinated dancing. Could it alone explain hundreds moving in fevered rhythm? Another theory suggests mass psychogenic illness, a psychological contagion spreading through the population. In a time of famine, disease, and despair, the people of Strasbourg may have reached a collective breaking point. Stress, hunger, and fear of divine punishment could have erupted into a shared mania, with dancing as its bizarre expression. Like laughter or yawning, the behavior may have spread contagiously from one person to another, spiraling into epidemic. Some scholars see a religious element. In the region, there was a strong devotion to Saint Vitus, a Christian saint associated with both protection from seizures and the curse of uncontrollable movement. Perhaps the dancers believed they were cursed by Saint Vitus, and in their terror, their bodies enacted the very curse they feared. Faith and fear combined, shaping the epidemic into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And yet, none of these explanations fully satisfy. Why did the dancing last for weeks? Why did so many die? Why Strasbourg? And why in 1518? Other outbreaks of dancing mania had been recorded in medieval Europe, in Aachen, in Cologne, in Metz, but none on such a scale. The Strasbourg plague stands alone, both in its intensity and its horror. Imagine the scene, the hot July sun beating down on the cobbled streets, the stench of sweat and blood as bodies writhed endlessly. Musicians playing, their melodies twisting into madness. Families dragging their loved ones away, only for them to escape and return to the throng. Priests chanting prayers, doctors scribbling hopeless notes, officials wringing their hands as the city spiraled into chaos. For the afflicted, there was no escape. Their limbs betrayed them, their bodies puppets to an unseen force. Perhaps the true horror of the dancing plague lies not in its cause, but in what it reveals about us. It shows how fragile the line is between control and chaos, how quickly the mind can break, how easily fear or hunger can manifest in the body.
It reminds us that we are creatures of flesh and spirit, vulnerable to both disease and belief. When the plague finally ended, it did so as mysteriously as it began. The dancers were led to a shrine of St. Vitus in Severn, where rituals were performed to lift the curse. Slowly, the mania subsided. The streets of Strasbourg fell silent again, but the memory lingered. An event so strange that it entered the annals of history, unsolved, inexplicable. To this day, the dancing plague of 1518 haunts historians. Was it poison, madness, religion, or something stranger still? Some phenomenon beyond our understanding, where body and spirit fused in a terrifying dance of death. The truth may never be known. What remains is the image of hundreds of souls caught in motion, unable to stop, whirling into exhaustion under the pitiless sky. The Nazca lines may whisper to the gods, Atlantis may lie beneath the sea, but in Strasbourg the mystery was flesh and blood. Real people danced themselves to death, and the world still cannot explain why. The Voynich Manuscript, the book no one can read. In the hushed chambers of the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University lies a book that has defied scholars, cryptographers, and dreamers for more than 500 years. Bound in limp vellum, its pages yellowed with age, it appears at first glance like any other medieval manuscript. Yet as you open its cover, you enter a world where nothing makes sense. Strange plants bloom across the pages, botanical illustrations of species no botanist has ever identified. Naked women bathe in green pools connected by elaborate tubes. Zodiac symbols whirl around pages, ringed by words in an unknown script. And all of it, every single word, is written in a language that no one can read. This is the Voynich Manuscript, named after Wilfrid Voynich, the antiquarian book dealer who purchased it in 1912. But its origins reach back centuries earlier. Carbon dating places the parchment between 1404 and 1438, at the dawn of the Renaissance. Yet, even with modern science, its contents remain opaque. The manuscript is about 240 pages long, though sections are missing. It is filled with illustrations, divided roughly into themes. Botanical, plants, herbs, roots, none of which match any known species. Astronomical, suns, moons, and stars, accompanied by astrological diagrams. Biological, human figures, mostly women, often immersed in flowing, interconnected pools. Pharmaceutical, jars and vessels resembling apothecary containers. Textual, pages of dense writing in the mysterious script. The script itself is the heart of the mystery. It is flowing, elegant, consistent, clearly the work of someone literate and disciplined. But the alphabet does not match any known writing system. Linguists, cryptographers, even code breakers from World War II who cracked Nazi Enigma tried their hand at it, and all failed. The language, if it is a language, remains sealed. Some believe it is a cipher, hiding secret knowledge in code. Perhaps it contains alchemical recipes, herbal remedies, or esoteric philosophy. If so, its encryption is unlike anything else in history, immune to even modern supercomputers that have attempted to crack it. Others argue it may be a constructed language, invented by a genius whose purpose has been lost. But another possibility lurks, that the Voynich manuscript is a hoax, a book designed to appear meaningful while containing only gibberish. Voynich himself, some suggest, could have forged it in the early 20th century. Yet carbon dating rules that out. Others blame medieval tricksters, producing nonsense to sell to wealthy collectors of esoterica. But if so, why the consistency? The script follows linguistic patterns, repetitions, structures, word lengths that suggest real meaning. If it is gibberish, it is a gibberish constructed with extraordinary skill. And then there are those who believe the manuscript holds otherworldly knowledge. The plants, unrecognizable to modern science, could be species from a forgotten world or even another planet.
The bathing women might not be bathing at all, but floating in some symbolic system of energy or fertility unknown to us. Some whisper that the manuscript is not human at all, that it is a gift from beings beyond our world, encoded in a language we were never meant to understand. In 1969, the manuscript was donated to Yale, where it remains under glass, studied but unsolved. Digital scans have made it available worldwide, inviting crowds of amateur sleuths to join the hunt. Yet every proposed solution collapses under scrutiny. No translation holds, no cipher matches, no explanation fits all the evidence. What makes the Voynich manuscript so haunting is its intentionality. It is not a random collection of scribbles. Someone, sometime in the early 15th century, sat down and painstakingly filled page after page with text and images. They had a purpose. They had a system. They believed in what they were recording. Yet we cannot touch that purpose. We are shut out, staring through a window at a locked garden of meaning. Imagine the scribe, hunched over in candlelight, quill scratching on vellum. Were they a monk, cloistered in secrecy, or a scholar protecting dangerous knowledge? Did they smile, knowing future generations would puzzle over their work? Or did they believe they were preserving truths vital for the survival of their people, truths that are now forever beyond our grasp? In 1969, the manuscript was donated to Yale, where it remains under glass, studied but unsolved. Digital scans have made it available worldwide, inviting crowds of amateur sleuths to join the hunt. Yet every proposed solution collapses under scrutiny. No translation holds, no cipher matches, no explanation fits all the evidence. What makes the Voynich manuscript so haunting is its intentionality. It is not a random collection of scribbles. Someone, sometime in the early 15th century, sat down and painstakingly filled page after page with text and images. They had a purpose. They had a system. They believed in what they were recording. Yet we cannot touch that purpose. We are shut out, staring through a window at a locked garden of meaning. Imagine the scribe, hunched over in candlelight, quill scratching on vellum. Were they a monk, cloistered in secrecy, or a scholar protecting dangerous knowledge? Did they smile, knowing future generations would puzzle over their work? Or did they believe they were preserving truths vital for the survival of their people, truths that are now forever beyond our grasp?
There is an eerie intimacy to the manuscript. The women who fill its pages seem alive, engaged in rituals both mundane and sacred, their naked bodies flowing through the green waters. The plants look as though they might breathe, sprouting from some dream soil. The script itself beckons, curving with beauty, its letters like vines curling around meaning we cannot taste. It is as though the book whispers, but in a tongue no human has ever spoken. Every generation rediscovers the Voynich manuscript and tries to break its code. And every generation fails. Perhaps the failure is the point. Perhaps it was never meant to be solved. Perhaps it was written to remind us of the limits of knowledge, the eternal gulf between what we see and what we understand. The Voynich manuscript is a riddle made flesh, a book that is both there and not there, a text that exists but will not speak. It is one of the few objects in history that resists explanation entirely. We can measure it, date it, describe it, but we cannot know it. And so it waits in its glass case at Yale, silent and unreadable. Scholars come and go, computers churn and fail. Eyes scan, minds puzzle, but the script remains locked. It will outlast us, as it has outlasted centuries already, carrying its secret deeper into time. Perhaps one day the code will break, and the book will reveal its truths, whether herbal remedies, secret histories, or cosmic nonsense. Or perhaps it will never yield, remaining forever what it is now, the most mysterious book in the world, a mirror reflecting our hunger for meaning and our terror of silence. Until then, the Voynich manuscript stands as a challenge to human arrogance. Not all knowledge is ours to possess. Some mysteries endure, ink on vellum, whispering through centuries. Read me if you can. Know me if you dare.
The disappearance of the Roanoke colony, lost in the New World. In the late 16th century, when the age of exploration pushed European powers across oceans into unknown lands, one small colony in the New World vanished so completely that its fate remains one of the most chilling mysteries in history. The story begins with ambition, hope, and empire, and ends with nothing but a single word carved into wood: Croatoan. In 1587, under the sponsorship of Sir Walter Raleigh, over 100 English men, women, and children landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. This was not the first attempt. An earlier settlement had failed, but this new colony was meant to endure, a foothold for England in the Americas. Families arrived with tools, seeds, and dreams of new lives across the sea. Their leader, John White, a skilled artist and governor, oversaw the founding of the colony. Among the settlers was his daughter, Eleanor, who soon gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. It should have been the beginning of a legacy. But supplies ran low, relations with local tribes grew tense, and survival was uncertain. In August of that year, John White sailed back to England to secure more provisions, promising to return quickly. Yet history intervened. War broke out with Spain, and England's ships were seized for battle against the mighty Armada. White was stranded in Europe for 3 long years. When he finally returned to Roanoke in 1590, his worst fears awaited him. The settlement was deserted, the houses dismantled, the fort abandoned, no sign of struggle or mass death. The colonists were gone, vanished as though swallowed by the forest. The only clue left behind was a word carved into a tree: Croatoan. Another carving, Crow, appeared on a nearby post. White interpreted this as a sign that the colonists had moved to Croatoan Island, today known as Hatteras Island, where a friendly tribe lived. Yet storms, dwindling supplies, and hostile seas prevented him from searching further. He returned to England empty-handed. The colonists of Roanoke were never seen again. What happened to them?
Theories abound. The most accepted is that the settlers assimilated with local tribes. Stories among Native American communities tell of pale-skinned, fair-haired people living among them in later generations. Some linguistic traces, English words appearing in tribal dialects, have been noted. Perhaps the colonists, starving and desperate, merged with the Croatoan or other tribes, their English identity dissolving into indigenous cultures. Another possibility is mass death, whether from disease, starvation, or conflict. The colonists may have succumbed quietly, leaving behind only skeletal remains that nature quickly reclaimed. Yet no graves, no bones, no evidence has ever surfaced. For an entire colony to vanish without a trace is deeply unsettling. Some theories veer into darker realms. Perhaps they were massacred by hostile tribes, their settlement dismantled, their bodies hidden. Yet there were no signs of violence at the site. Others suggest they tried to sail back to England themselves, building boats from their dismantled homes, only to perish at sea. And then there is the legend of Croatoan itself. That word has become ghostly in American folklore. Centuries later, it appeared in other eerie contexts, etched into a post in Virginia after another mysterious disappearance, scribbled in the diary of Edgar Allan Poe before his death, even found in the belongings of Amelia Earhart. Coincidence or some lingering curse? Croatoan has become less a place name and more a symbol of vanishing, of things lost forever. The Roanoke mystery persists because it is not simply about one colony. It is about the fragility of beginnings, the razor's edge on which civilizations are built. England dreamed of empire, but its first seed in the New World was swallowed by silence. Virginia Dare, that newborn child, became a ghostly figure in American legend. Some stories cast her as a white doe enchanted by native spirits, doomed to wander the forests forever. Her fate embodies the lost promise of Roanoke, a future erased before it began. Modern archaeology continues the search. Artifacts have been found on Hatteras Island suggesting English presence: tools, weapons, fragments of pottery. Some scholars believe this confirms the assimilation theory, but certainty remains elusive. The forest keeps its secrets. The soil of Roanoke refuses to tell. To imagine the colony's end is to step into fear. The settlers, isolated, surrounded by vast forests and unfamiliar peoples, cut off from their homeland, must have felt the weight of abandonment as the months turned to years without relief. Did they carve Croatoan in hope or despair? Did they march away as families seeking safety, or scatter into the wilderness in small groups? Did Virginia Dare grow to adulthood among another people, her English name forgotten? Or did all of them perish, their bones dissolved into the swamp, leaving only silence for history to ponder? The lost colony of Roanoke is more than a footnote in history. It is a wound of uncertainty. It reminds us how thin the veil is between survival and oblivion, how easily 100 souls can vanish into time. It whispers that even in the age of reason and empire, the wilderness was stronger, hungrier, more patient. And perhaps that is why the story endures. Because somewhere, beneath the soil of Roanoke or the sands of Hatteras, the answers lie. But until they are found, the lost colony remains just that, a shadow at the beginning of America's story, a mystery carved into a tree, a question that may never be answered. The Shroud of Turin, a face in the cloth. In a cathedral in Turin, Italy, locked away in a climate-controlled case and unveiled only on rare occasions, lies a piece of linen that has stirred centuries of awe, devotion, and fierce debate. To some, it is the holiest relic in Christendom, the burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth, imprinted with the image of his crucified body at the moment of resurrection. To others, it is one of history's greatest hoaxes, a medieval forgery that fooled kings, popes, and pilgrims alike. Yet no matter how many tests are performed, the Shroud of Turin refuses to give up its secret. The cloth itself is about 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide, woven in a herringbone pattern of flax. Faintly visible upon it is the image of a man, front and back, his arms crossed, his body elongated, his face solemn. Wounds are visible, scourge marks across the back, punctures around the head like a crown of thorns, bloodstains on the wrists and feet. The image is not painted nor drawn. It is not made of pigment or dye. It appears as though the figure has been seared into the very fibers, a photographic negative centuries before photography was invented. The first historical record of the shroud appears in the 1350s when it surfaced in France and was displayed in a small church in Liry. Even then, questions arose. The local bishop declared it a forgery, claiming the artist had confessed. Yet pilgrims flocked to see it, kneeling before the cloth as though in the presence of Christ himself. In time, the shroud passed into the possession of the House of Savoy, and eventually into Turin, where it remains today. The modern age has only deepened the mystery. In 1898, an amateur photographer named Secondo Pia was granted permission to photograph the shroud. When he developed his plates, he nearly dropped them in shock. The negative revealed the image of a man's face with stunning clarity, far more detailed than could be seen by the naked eye. The shroud itself was a kind of proto-photograph, an imprint of a body burned into cloth. Scientists and believers alike were stunned. Examinations followed. Forensic pathologists studied the bloodstains and declared them anatomically accurate, consistent with crucifixion wounds. Textile experts confirmed the weave was known in the Middle East during the 1st century. Yet skeptics pressed on. In 1988, radiocarbon dating tests were performed on a fragment of the cloth by 3 separate laboratories. The results seemed definitive. The fibers dated to between 1260 and 1390 CE, placing the shroud firmly in the medieval period. Headlines declared the mystery solved. The Shroud of Turin was a clever medieval fake. But the story refused to end there. Critics pointed out flaws in the testing. The sample taken may have come from a corner that had been repaired after a fire in the 1500s, contaminated with newer fibers. Other studies detected traces of pollen unique to the Middle East, suggesting the cloth had once traveled there. Microscopic analysis of the image itself revealed no paint, no pigment, no brushstrokes. The image was not applied by any known artistic technique. Some scientists argued it was created by a burst of intense radiation, scorching only the surface fibers of the linen, something no medieval forger could have replicated. And so the debate rages on. Is the shroud a medieval forgery? If so, it is the most ingenious and inexplicable forgery ever produced, one that has evaded every attempt at full exposure. Or is it what millions of believers claim, the burial shroud of Christ, marked at the very moment when life triumphed over death? The power of the shroud lies not only in its mystery, but in its presence. To stand before it, even through glass, is to encounter the silence of centuries. The faint face stares outward, its features blurred yet unmistakable. It is not a painting to admire, but an imprint of suffering. It whispers of blood, of nails, of agony endured. Whether it is Christ or not, it carries the weight of humanity's longing for proof of the divine. And then there is the eerie fact of the image itself. It is not embedded in the fibers, but rests only on the outermost threads, so shallow that if you scrape away a single fiber, the image disappears. It is, in essence, a ghost of a man, a shadow on cloth. How was such an image formed centuries before photography? Heat? Radiation? A miracle?
The Shroud of Turin sits at the crossroads of faith and science, where neither side can claim victory. Believers kneel before it as a relic of resurrection. Skeptics dismiss it as medieval trickery. Yet both are haunted by the same truth. The image defies explanation. Perhaps that is why the shroud endures. It is more than cloth. It is a question woven into linen, a riddle seared by fire or miracle. It forces us to confront the limits in knowledge, the hunger for certainty, the yearning for a sign that suffering has meaning. Maybe it is not meant to be solved. Maybe its power lies in its ambiguity. If it were proven false, faith would suffer. If it were proven true, faith would no longer be faith. It would be fact. The shroud balances between these worlds, neither forgery nor miracle, but something stranger, a relic of mystery itself. To gaze upon the Shroud of Turin is to gaze upon the face of the unknown. It is a mirror for belief, reflecting back what we bring to it. Some see Christ, some see fraud, all see mystery. And in that sense, perhaps, the shroud fulfills its purpose, to remind us that some truths lie beyond the grasp of science or skepticism, waiting in silence, imprinted not on cloth, but on the human soul. The Tunguska event, the day the sky exploded. On the morning of June 30, 1908, deep in the remote Siberian taiga near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River, the earth trembled, the sky caught fire, and an explosion of incomprehensible force flattened nearly 2,000 square kilometers of forest. Eyewitnesses, reindeer herders, hunters, and scattered villagers spoke of a blazing orb racing across the heavens, followed by a shockwave so violent it shattered windows hundreds of kilometers away. Trees were seared upright near the epicenter, stripped of branches like skeletal totems, while further out, millions of them lay flattened in a radial pattern, pointing away from a mysterious center. Yet no crater was ever found. The event remains one of the most bewildering natural mysteries in modern history. It is as though the sky itself fell, yet it left behind no clear trace of what had struck.
Scientists estimate the Tunguska explosion released energy equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, about 1,000 times greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And yet, unlike a nuclear detonation, there was no mushroom cloud, no radiation, no impact crater. The forest bore the scars of unimaginable violence, but the earth showed no wound where a celestial body should have struck. It was an explosion without a weapon, a cataclysm without a cause. The flattened trees radiated outward in a butterfly-shaped pattern, almost as if something in the atmosphere had exploded above them. Those closest to the epicenter were charred but remained upright, suggesting a massive shock wave pressed directly down before sweeping outward. Witnesses recalled a sky split in two, flames high above the ground, and a noise like cannons firing, louder than thunder. For days afterward, the skies across Europe and Asia glowed eerily at night, bright enough that people could read newspapers by their light. Something vast had happened in Siberia, but what? If the Tunguska event had been caused by a meteorite, as many have argued, it should have left a crater. Yet despite countless expeditions, no definitive impact site has been found. The ground at the supposed epicenter, near the Shishkovka swamp, is marshy, covered with peat bogs, and devoid of obvious impact debris. Early expeditions in the 1920s found no trace of a meteorite. Later scientific missions uncovered small spheres rich in metals like nickel and iron embedded in the soil, but not the enormous chunks of space rock that would be expected from such a colossal blast. Instead, the evidence points to something that exploded in mid-air, an airburst. A stony asteroid or comet fragment entering Earth's atmosphere at immense speed could have heated up, fractured, and detonated miles above the ground, unleashing a shockwave that flattened the forest without leaving a crater. But even this explanation is imperfect. No large fragments have ever been recovered, and if it were a comet made of ice, it should have vaporized entirely, leaving almost nothing at all. Yet the devastation remains.
For decades, accounts of the event circulated like folklore. A farmer named Semyon Semenov, over 60 kilometers away, described sitting outside when the sky split apart. Fire filled the heavens, and a great blast knocked him from his chair. His shirt felt as though it were burning, and moments later a shock wave tore through the air, flattening crops. Others told of a fiery object streaking across the sky, followed by deafening thunderclaps. Some believed it was the end of the world, others whispered it was a divine punishment. The indigenous Evenki people, whose reindeer herds were devastated, told stories of angry gods hurling fire or a shamanic curse taking form. These accounts mingle fear with awe, as though the heavens themselves had struck a bargain with destruction. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed to explain Tunguska. The most widely accepted is the asteroid airburst theory. A stony asteroid, perhaps 50 to 60 meters in diameter, entered the atmosphere at supersonic speed, heated violently, and exploded 5 to 10 kilometers above the Earth. The energy release would match the devastation observed, and the lack of a crater is explained by the mid-air detonation. Others argue for a cometary impact, with an icy body vaporizing in the atmosphere, leaving behind little debris. This could also explain the glowing skies across Europe as water vapor and dust refracted sunlight. But even within these scientific explanations, puzzles linger. The patterns of treefall are unusual, the lack of fragments troubling, and the eyewitness descriptions sometimes stranger than science allows. Beyond mainstream science, the Tunguska event has inspired a kaleidoscope of more exotic theories. Some suggest it was a volcanic gas eruption, with methane from the swamps igniting catastrophically. Others argue it could have been a mini black hole passing through the Earth, puncturing our planet's crust without leaving visible entry or exit wounds. Perhaps the most famous French theory is that it was caused by extraterrestrial technology, an alien craft crashing or even a controlled detonation to prevent a larger disaster. Soviet scientists in the mid-20th century sometimes speculated that the blast resembled a massive nuclear explosion decades before such weapons were invented.
The thought that Tunguska might have been some kind of cosmic experiment or warning lingers in popular imagination. One particularly eerie idea is the Tesla connection. Nikola Tesla, working on his experimental Wardenclyffe Tower in New York at the time, claimed he could transmit wireless energy across the globe. Some conspiracy theorists have wondered if he tested his invention on that fateful morning, accidentally causing a beam of destructive energy to strike Siberia. There is no evidence for this, but the timing fuels speculation. When Russian scientist Leonid Kulik led the first official Soviet expedition to the Tunguska site in 1927, he expected to find a giant crater and meteorite fragments. Instead, he found miles of flattened trees, swampy ground, and a strange silence. His team collected eyewitness testimonies, examined the pattern of destruction, and concluded something extraordinary had happened, but the mystery deepened rather than resolved. Subsequent expeditions found soil chemistry anomalies, traces of rare elements, and microscopic metallic spherules. Later satellite imagery confirmed the butterfly-shaped blast zone. Modern computer simulations support the airburst theory, but with caveats. We can model what happened, but we cannot prove it with physical remains. Tunguska remains a riddle, an event that should have left behind overwhelming evidence, but instead leaves only absence. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Tunguska event is what it implies for the future. If such a relatively small object could flatten a forest the size of a small European country, what would happen if a larger asteroid or comet struck? Tunguska reminds us that Earth is not isolated, but vulnerable, suspended in a cosmic shooting gallery. The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was vastly larger than whatever struck Siberia, yet Tunguska offers a haunting preview of what even a modest celestial visitor can do. The fact that no one died in the explosion, despite the unimaginable force, feels almost miraculous. Had the Tunguska event occurred hours later, the fireball might have exploded over St. Petersburg or Moscow, wiping out entire cities. Instead, it struck one of the most remote wildernesses on Earth, flattening trees and reindeer but sparing human life. It is as though fate, or chance, directed the blast away from civilization. Over a century later, the Tunguska event remains unsolved in the deepest sense. Science can model probabilities in simulations, but the actual culprit, the exact body, its composition, its trajectory, remains unknown. The absence of definitive physical evidence keeps the mystery alive. The Tunguska forest has since regrown, hiding the scars of that day. Yet if you walk among its trees, you walk upon the stage of a cosmic drama. The earth remembers even if it does not reveal. The silence of the taiga conceals the sound of an explosion so great it shook the planet. It is a reminder that the universe does not answer to us. It acts without warning, without explanation. Sometimes the sky itself falls, and when it does, we are left with only questions and the uneasy knowledge that it could happen again. The Tunguska event is not only a historical mystery, it is a warning, a reminder that we live under open skies, that fire can fall from the heavens at any time, and that there are forces far beyond our control. It is the mystery of absence, the enigma of destruction without trace. A century later, we are still staring into the blast, still listening for the echo of the sky's explosion, still wondering what really happened on that fateful day in Siberia.
The Phaistos Disk, a message from an unknown world. Beneath the sun-baked soil of Crete, cradle of the Minoan civilization, archaeologists in 1908 uncovered a relic unlike anything ever seen before. In the ruins of the palace at Phaistos, Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernere brushed away dust to reveal a small clay disc no larger than a man's hand. Baked hard, reddish in color, it bore upon its two sides a spiral of symbols. 241 impressions in total, arranged in a whorl like a coiled serpent.
The symbols were unlike any known writing, stamped with precision, as though pressed into the wet clay with carefully carved seals. Horses, ships, tools, birds, flowers, faces, all marched along the spiral, silent as they curled inward. This artifact, known today as the Phaistos disk, remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing enigmas. Over a century later, no one knows what it says, what language it belongs to, or even whether it is writing at all. The disk is unique. While thousands of Minoan tablets inscribed with Linear A and Linear B scripts have been found, no other object in the world bears the symbols of the Phaistos disk. It is a solitary voice, speaking a language without kin, a message without reply. Scholars debate whether it is a hymn, a prayer, a legal code, a calendar, or simply an elaborate game. But with no parallels, no Rosetta Stone, the symbols remain locked, as silent as the day they were pressed. What makes the disk even more mysterious is its method of creation. The symbols were not carved individually, but impressed with stamps, movable type, centuries before Gutenberg. If true, this would mark the disk as the earliest example of printing in human history, made not in Renaissance Europe, but in Bronze Age Crete. Was this a single experiment by a forgotten scribe, or does it hint at a lost technology, a tradition of stamping that left behind no other trace? Theories multiply like shadows. Some claim the disk is a sacred text, a hymn to a forgotten god, its spiral pattern echoing ritual dances or the winding of the cosmos. Others argue it is a cosmological chart, mapping the stars or seasons. Still others whisper it is a curse tablet, binding enemies with symbols too dangerous to be spoken aloud. A few even doubt its authenticity, suspecting it might be a modern forgery planted in the excavation to deceive. Yet most scholars accept it as genuine, an authentic artifact of the Minoan world, and therefore all the more baffling.
The disk's very form suggests intention. Its spiral pulls the eye inward, as though drawing the reader into a mystery. The symbols, repeated in patterns, suggest grammar, rhythm, structure. But what language? Some have compared it to Linear A, the still undeciphered script of the Minoans. Others see echoes of Anatolian hieroglyphs or even Proto-Cypriot signs. None match. Each attempt at translation collapses under scrutiny, revealing the limits of our knowledge. Perhaps most haunting is the thought that the Phaistos disk may represent not a language at all, but a ritual performance. Imagine a priest holding the disk, turning slowly as they chant, the spiral guiding their voice inward toward silence. The disk may have been less a book than an instrument, not to be read but to be enacted. If so, then we are not only missing the words, we are missing the music. What if the disk is a message from a lost people? A fragment of a civilization erased by time, leaving behind no other script, no other trace. If that is true, then the disk is not merely undecipherable, it is undecipherable. Its language died with those who spoke it, its meaning dissolved into the earth. All that remains is the spiral, a fossil of thought, a ghost of communication. And yet the disk exerts a strange power. To stand before it in the Heraclean Archaeological Museum is to feel the weight of silence pressing outward. Its symbols stare back like eyes, inviting interpretation, resisting understanding. You know that someone, 3,500 years ago, pressed those stamps with purpose. They meant something. They held knowledge in their hands, knowledge that we cannot touch. It is a reminder that history is full of locked doors, and that some will never open. The Phaistos disk may never be read. It may remain forever what it is now, a riddle in clay, a whisper across millennia, a voice without echo. But in its refusal to yield, it becomes more than an object. It becomes a symbol of mystery itself, the limit of archaeology, the edge of understanding, the boundary where human knowledge falters.
Like the Voynich manuscript, like the Nazca lines, like Stonehenge, it is a mirror of our hunger to know and our frustration at what cannot be known. It asks us, are we willing to live with mystery, or must we insist on answers even when none exist. The spiral of the Phaistos disk curls inward forever, drawing the eye toward its center, towards silence. It is a journey with no end, a riddle with no solution, a message that speaks most loudly by never speaking at all. And so, as we close this journey through the top 15 greatest historical mysteries that remain unsolved, the Phaistos disk leaves us with the perfect reminder. The past is not a solved puzzle, but a labyrinth. Within its shadows lie questions that outlast empires, whispers that defy translation, enigmas that live precisely because they remain unanswered. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is not the disk itself, nor the colony, nor the shroud, nor the lost cities, but the human need to understand, to demand meaning, to wrestle with silence. We chase mysteries because they remind us that the world is larger than our grasp, and history deeper than our memory. The Phaistos disk sits in its glass case, unyielding. And yet, in its stubborn silence, it speaks the loudest truth of all, that some mysteries endure because they are meant to.